human rights is that each one of us, no matter who we are or where we are born, is entitled to the same basic rights and freedoms. Human rights are not privileges, and they cannot be granted or revoked. They are inalienable and universal.
While most of us know about the Federal Constitution of Malaysia, we often hear about some parts more than others. Few have a clear and thorough understanding of what it really is. The Federal Constitution is, quite simply, the highest law of the land. It lays down who gets to make the laws, how the laws are made, and what kind of laws can be made. The Federal Constitution basically determines how Malaysia is run. In its current form, the Constitution is made up of 15 parts. But what do these parts entail? Part 1 lays out the basics. Malaysia as a federation of 13 states and 3 federal territories. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and Islam is the religion of the federation, with the provision to practice other religions peacefully. Part 2 sets out our fundamental liberties and rights. For example, the right to life and liberty, and the right to equality, which prevents the discrimination of a person or group of people. Part 3 details who can become a Malaysian citizen and how one can lose their Malaysian citizenship. Part 4 sets out the structure of Malaysia's government: the supreme ruler and head of state, the conference of rulers, the office of the Prime Minister, the Malaysian cabinet, and parliament. Part 5 concerns the states of Malaysia. Each state has its own constitution and legislative assembly, with the rulers of the states possessing their own rights and privileges. Part 6 sets out the distribution of powers between the federal and state governments. The 3 articles that detail who is in charge of what are the federal list, the state list, and the concurrent list. Part 7 prevents the government from imposing taxes or spending money unless the law authorizes them to do so. Part 8 asserts a right to vote and establishes an election commission, which is in charge of preparing and revising the electoral rolls, as well as conducting the country's elections. Part 9 establishes the court system, details what can and cannot be decided by these courts, and also establishes the appointment of judges. Part 10 sets out the appointment of the public service, from the police and armed forces to the Attorney General and teachers. This part covers all civil servants working at both state and federal levels of government. Part 11 grants Parliament the ability to pass laws that might go against the Constitution for reasons of public safety. Part 12 outlines Bahasa Malaysia as the national language, as well as the responsibility of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong to protect the special position of the Malays, the natives of Sabah and Sarawak, and the legitimate interests of other communities. It also details how amendments may be made to the Constitution. Part 12A then touches on specific provisions for Sabah and Sarawak, such as native land reservations for indigenous peoples. Part 13 explains how laws made before Merdeka can still be enforced until Parliament passes a new law to replace it. Part 14 establishes safeguards for the sovereignty, powers, prerogatives, and jurisdictions of the rulers. Part 15, the final part, allows for legal proceedings to be brought against the Yang di-Pertuan Agong or a ruler of state in their personal capacity. Said proceedings must be brought before a special court, further detailed by Part 15. At this point, you're probably wondering, can anyone actually be above the Constitution? The answer is no. The Prime Minister, cabinet members, members of parliament, judges, and even the Yang di-Pertuan Agong himself swear oaths to obey the Constitution. It is, after all, the highest law in the land. So a person or an institution's failures to abide by the roles and powers granted to them by the Constitution will render their acts null and void. If someone disagrees on a certain provision within the Constitution, the courts have the power to determine how said provision is interpreted. The federal court's decision on a particular interpretation will be binding for everyone, unless this is overtaken by a subsequent federal court decision. This means that an interpretation of the Constitution may still change over time. Okay, so now, is it possible to actually amend parts of the Constitution? The simple answer is yes. Article 159 details how constitutional amendments can be made. A constitutional amendment bill must be passed by not less than 2/3 of the members of both the Dewan Rakyat and the Dewan Negara. A recent example of this is the amendment of the minimum voting age from 21 to 18. Occasionally, though, certain provisions may require additional consent from either the Conference of Rulers or the Governors of Sabah and Sarawak, with some amendments only requiring a simple majority. And a bonus fun fact for you, the Constitution of the United States of America has been amended 27 times since its ratification in 1789. This is in comparison to the relatively young Malaysian Constitution, which has been amended 57 times as of 2017.
Suhakam is the movement, right?
Suruhanjaya Hak Asasi Malaysia.
As a member state of the United Nations, Malaysia has the obligation to uphold fundamental human rights principles as enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as well as the Federal Constitution. The Suhakam logo is a symbolic message of integrity, transparency, stability, and equality, with the equal sides representing equality for all. The Human Rights Commission of Malaysia, or Suhakam, is a Paris Principles compliant national human rights institution established based on the Human Rights Commission of Malaysia Act 1999, Act 597. Established at the turn of the millennium, its mandate is to promote awareness of and provide education on human rights, advise and help the government formulate legislation, recommend to the government actions in the field of human rights, and inquire into complaints about infringement of human rights. Suhakam is a result of Malaysia's active participation in the United Nations Commission on Human Rights and was first led by Tun Musa Hitam.
In the course of performing my duties in New York, I discovered that there was such a thing as Human Rights Commission under the UN, number one. But number two, the membership of this commission were made up of countries which had been severely criticized for human rights violations. So it occurred to me, why should Malaysia be criticized but does not take the opportunity of trying to explain what we are all about vis-a-vis human rights? To cut the story short, we bid for it and Malaysia got elected. Now, I was duly appointed as leading the Malaysian delegation to the Human Rights Commission. In the meantime, we had the Human Rights Summit in Vienna, and one of the decisions made there was that each nation should form its own Human Rights Commission. And in the end, we passed the law.
One of the cornerstones of Suhakam is their independence from the government, being a statutory body with integrity, accountability, and transparency at the forefront of its agenda. Suhakam has formed working groups to discharge its statutory duties and functions through various programs and activities. This includes the outreach education programs for vulnerable groups such as Orang Asli, women, persons with disabilities, and children, awareness raising on core human rights treaties, as well as complaints handling and investigation, with the aim of fostering respect amongst all members of society. It serves as a monitoring body and is part of an educational effort for a more participatory and inclusive society that observes, respects, and promotes human rights values in their daily lives.
Well, I think certainly Suhakam has made an impact in terms of human rights in this country. In terms of specific examples, I can cite at least two. The public inquiry into the Bersih II Assembly and the land inquiry for the indigenous people. I think that was a hugely important work on the part of Suhakam to have a very focused study on this issue in Semenanjung, in Sabah and in Sarawak. So in these two very clear areas, you can see that Suhakam has played an important role in establishing human rights norms in Malaysia and calling into question the authorities on these issues.
In accordance to Section 21(1) of the Suhakam Act, Suhakam publishes and tables in Parliament its annual report that monitors the implementation of human rights policies, conducts research and publishes thematic human rights reports, brings to the government's attention contentious human rights issues, and works to improve the human rights standards of the country.
Once we receive Suhakam's annual report, myself as the Minister in charge of Human Rights has the responsibility to present the report to the Cabinet. There I need to explain some of the key areas that need to be tackled and need to be solved. The Cabinet will decide which ministry should be involved, and it is my role as a minister to forge a collaboration together with other ministries. We like to solve human rights problem in a holistic manner, involving both enforcement area, care and support, and where necessary to amend the processes and also amend the laws that are required.
By bringing human rights to the forefront of the country's agenda, Suhakam continues to strive as a national human rights institution that champions human rights for all in Malaysia, with the aim of fostering a society in which human rights are fully respected, protected, and enjoyed equally by all. Suhakam, human rights